So hi everyone, welcome back, and Babula and I are with you again this month and talking about the new moon in Virgo. But you know, that's happening at a time when a lot of other things are happening that we're seeing, like police behaviour is not the best that it could be, stoking the fire under the pot for, you know, society, I think. Abuse of power in all sorts of different ways, and you know, in so many different ways the pandemic has affected the cohesion of our society, and that's all playing out in the stars, as I'm sure you're going to tell us. But let's kick it off with the new moon in Virgo.
Okay, yeah. Yes, and there's so much in all of that you said, and we can't talk about anything going on astrologically this year, I think, without putting it within the context of the whole story of what's happening in 2020. But I'll start without that. Let's pretend all the drama of 2020 isn't happening, and we'll just talk about a new moon in Virgo, you know. And so on the yearly cycles of the lunations, this is the Virgo one, and it's actually occurring at, what is it, 25, I think, 25 degrees of Virgo, the sun and the moon coming together at 25 of Virgo. So Virgo, as most of you will know, is an earth sign. It's what we call a mutable earth sign. And the mutable signs are signs that thrive on variety and change and movement, which is interesting in an earth sign, but I think it's reflected in, you know, nature is constantly moving. You know, there's nothing static going on in the natural world. And you've just got to look at, you know, plants and weather and the sun and the moon, you know, everything's moving. And this is the mutability of the earth sign of Virgo. And I think Virgo is very connected to me to nature. And we could include in that to the, you know, the archetypal energies of the goddess, you know, the feminine deity, I think is very connected to Virgo. So Virgo is harvest, you know, all the images we have of Virgo is this beautiful woman holding a sheath of wheat, and there's usually a background of, you know, nature and the earth and the abundance of nature and so on. So it's got a lot to do with the planting of food and harvesting of food and herbs and medicinal plants, and really connecting physically and mentally and emotionally and spiritually with the earth and with nature and with her wisdom. Like there are many who work with medicinal plants and so on. And I take this view, and I don't actually, you know, I'm not a professional healer or anything. I'm just naturally interested in these things. That nature provides every single thing we need for every malady we could possibly imagine. You know, it's all just there in front of us in the natural world, and Indigenous people know that. And so there's this incredible connection with that aspect of life. But because Virgo is, in our human experience, is also about the health of our physical body, it reminds us to take good care of it. And Virgo brings everything down to the minutiae, you know, to the small, to the detail. You know, that wonderful line in a famous poem about, you know, seeing eternity in a grain of sand. Like it's the microscopic view, but you can look at a cell through a microscope and, you know, see a universe. It's that sort of thing.
Go on. I'm just having a giggle. I'll tell you in a minute. Go on.
Okay, yeah, because you have a very scientific, you know, perspective. So Virgo is opposite Pisces, and in Pisces we see everything in the vast universality of, you know, oneness of everything, and in Pisces we bring it down to the minutiae, but they are connected, and I think that's a really beautiful thing. And this new moon, by the way, has an opposition to Neptune in Pisces, so it's really connecting us to both those two polarities of the same story in a way. And these two signs have a lot to do with healing. Virgo says, okay, let's analyze, break this down, maybe get some tests or whatever we need to do to figure out what's happening. Remember, Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So we do a lot of an analytical investigation and study in this sign. And we look at, you know, okay, this, and I can see maybe you need more of this and we need more of that. And, you know, and need to eliminate these toxic elements from your diet, you know, and clean it up, clean up the environment, clean up your diet, clean out the body, clean your house. You know, we spoke a bit about that last week because the sun is, of course, still in Virgo. But it gets really heightened, I think, around this new moon. And of course, on the new moon, there's no moon visible in the night sky. So in the day or two leading up to the new moon, we're in the balsamic phase, which is when everything in nature actually sort of quietens down in a way, you know, and so we are called to quieten down if that's possible. In Virgo, that's not always easy because there's the endless to-do list, as every Virgoan knows. You know, so it's a sign that keeps us really busy and mentally and physically and practically preoccupied with the endless list of things. But one of the things that I've noticed is I have ticked so many things off my long list of things to do in the last couple of weeks while we're in this Virgo time. I think I've been sort of plowing through and it feels so good to just get them done. It's such a Virgo thing.
Yeah.
So there's sort of some of the themes. So it's always wise in the day or two prior to the actual new moon, as much as we can, to quieten down, to rest a little more, because it's the end of the previous cycle. You know, the previous cycle has closed, of Leo has closed now, and we're now about to birth the new cycle, which has the Virgo stamp.
Well,
that quest for good health is really a key thing here.
I was just having a giggle before because I've been married to 2 Virgos, so I know it well.
Yes, you do.
And you know, you're talking about the details. It's the devil in the details, because all signs have a different side to them as well. So they can be quite critical because they're such perfectionists.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's one of the challenging qualities that people can experience around Virgos, and the Virgos can experience that as well, because people, and you don't have to be a Virgo with the sun in Virgo, you might have a number of planets or your ascendant or the moon in the sign of Virgo to really relate to this, or you might have progressed planets going on in Virgo as well. But that's absolutely right. I've seen this for people who have this Virgo tendency to perfectionism. It's actually very stressful for them as well. It can kind of develop to varying degrees to OCD tendencies, which is not a very relaxed place to be. You know, it's a place that's full of anxiety and stress about everything has to be perfect. And we know that in life, I think there's great wisdom in learning to see the perfection in the imperfection. The perfection in the mess, you know, because life's pretty messy, really.
So with the new moon in Virgo, do you think that will affect some people in a way that you know, they're going to be even more upset, frustrated, stressed, angry because they're not seeing things happening that should be and that are the right things happening, that sort of stuff?
That's right. And getting more perhaps agitated when things are chaotic, because Pisces in a way represents the chaos of everything's just in this constant flux and is boundaryless energy. And Virgo endeavors to bring order into chaos, which is a beautiful thing. Now, when you tune into the actual energy of Virgo, it's actually exquisite. These 2 signs are very sensitive, but it's that desire to bring some order into chaos, which is a fantastic thing, really. But when someone's driven so totally by that impulse to order everything, it can manifest as almost like a disorder, you know, and a source of incredible stress. This sign is prone to stress because of that sense of that sort of desperate need to get everything done and have everything in perfect running order. And while that has wonderful positive effects in certain situations, if we're trying to run our whole life like that, you know, such a good thing.
Always striving.
Exactly.
Always strive.
Always. And workaholic. I mean, it's very prone to workaholic.
Yeah.
Pisces, you know, can't rest. And in Pisces, it's like you sit back, sit on the couch, watch a movie, you know, just glass of wine. But not in Virgo. You would never stop. Like the Virgo will watch TV and will be knitting or sewing or doing their bookwork at the same time. You know, having the computer going and they're working and what, you know, because you have to keep getting things done.
Of course, the opposite of that is some of them can be real slobs.
Now, that is so interesting. I hear this from parents who say to me, oh, but my son, you know, my 16-year-old son, his room is a nightmare. And again, it depends what house you have the Virgo planets in, you know, as well. And the rest of the chart, of course, because there can be a lot of other mitigating factors. But I say, you wait when he comes into his, and not all teenage Virgos are like that. Some are very meticulous, but over the years, you will see that the Virgo meticulousness, if that's a word, shows up in other ways and probably in their work, you know? Yeah.
And that might be why they're good accountants, engineers, mathematicians, those sort of people.
Exactly. Because in some professions, you need that aptitude for detail, like nurses, surgeons, doctors will often have Virgo energy because, you know, you need to be quite precise in certain fields. Absolutely do. And, you know, even in the world of astrology, you'll often find quite a bit of Virgo going on in astrologers. I mean, there are many other things that would point to that, but it can be that love of like digging around in the details, you know, looking for facts and looking for information. And it's like a great source of pleasure and delight almost, you know, to uncover very little specific bits of information.
Yes. So maybe not get too hung up on, because you can get stuck on details too, can't you? I mean, that's where that saying comes from. You can't see the forest for the trees.
Absolutely. And we can get really obsessed with, you know, getting facts. What are the facts? What are the facts? And Pisces, the opposite sign, reminds us that, what is a fact? And how can you know any of that's true? Even if you've got a fact written down in a, you know, in an accredited journal or somewhere, do you really know it's true? Like, it's the real evidence. Like, well, here's the evidence. Here, well, how do you really know? You
I think I've been accused of that.
Things get very mysterious, you know. So it's this interesting juxtaposition, and this signs that are in polarity are so interesting, and we must consider them together, you know, particularly as this new moon has that opposition to Neptune in Pisces. And because these signs are both mutable, it's like fact is not necessarily fixed, you know, it can shift and change. And we know that. That's the nature of things.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, it's the nature of consciousness, it's the nature of life. It's not a fixed static thing at all.
And it's the nature of science too, because all knowledge is in a state of flux.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Nothing is set in stone.
No.
Which actually brings us to Capricorn, of course, because that is the sign of stone.
Yes.
And I've been thinking about this morning, actually. I saw an amazing, very interesting, intelligent post online. But in Capricorn, there's this endeavor and urge to want to set things into stone, like, because Capricorn, the final and third earth signs, we have Taurus, the first earth sign, then Virgo, in Virgo we're seeking to refine. It's a very refined energy, Virgo. In Capricorn, we want to bring all that earth energy of manifestation into really a solid concrete form. And as a cardinal sign, Capricorn has a very strong drive, you know, and ambition to make that happen, which is a magnificent and beautiful thing. So, you know, a person who creates an amazing business out of nothing, which you see a lot in the sign of Capricorn, I mean, what a wonderful thing. It manifests something out of an idea or out of an impulse.
Mm.
And the idea, and now we get interesting, the idea and the impulse comes from Aries, which is square to Capricorn.
Mm.
So on the cardinal cross, you know, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, there is this impulse to move and to initiate something new and to make something happen. And in Capricorn, it's to bring it into actual 3D form,
Yes.
into physicality.
Mm.
You know, and so the Capricorns run businesses, corporations, organizations, they run countries, they, you know, even the Capricorn artist, and I love this idea, when you look at anyone who's like an artist who creates something artistically that has a, you know, that there it is in front of you and you can see it. If you look at that through the eyes of the different signs, you know, the Capricorn artist often might be a sculptor, or their paintings have structure, form, you know, it's like really, the outlines might even be there in black, you know. It's so interesting how this manifests. But to come back to, I can go on for hours about these things. I wander off and follow these trails, you know.
Well, I was just going to, just to finish that off, just say that like spiritual art, for example, is in its own way bringing heaven to earth, because it's manifesting the transcendental into physical form in a piece of art.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. Absolutely. That's exactly right. Like, where does that come from? It comes from some, you know, what some people call the muse, the inspiration. And where does that come from? That's right. That's exactly right. And it manifests in every person completely differently. Completely. Even when you watch a group of 10 artists, perhaps in a class, following the teacher, they're kind of painting the same thing, but it never looks the same because it comes through differently.
Yeah.
So in the world now, of course, we're seeing the Capricorn manifestation of something that's been in place for a long, long, long time, because in Capricorn, we look to the past, and we're sort of governed in many ways by time and clocks and calendars. You know, Saturn rules Capricorn, the Lord of time and other things, karma and many things. So Capricorn has a strong affinity with history, and if we look back at the history of humanity, which many wise, intelligent souls have through different lenses and perspectives, you know, and in astrology being one of them, but many other ways to do that. What's been going on planet Earth with humanity, you know, the structures and systems that have been put in place actually have their origins way, way, way back. And it's slowly sort of been building and building and building, you know, the governments, the economic systems that we have, the education systems, a way of living, of growing food, everything has kind of culminated and come to this point, which is what Capricorn's about. Capricorn, Saturn, and the 10th house are about the culmination of human endeavor, which is why, for example, for a Capricorn who's set out on a path and has a goal to climb that mountain, whether it's a spiritual mountain or a business mountain or a political mountain, you know, whatever the mountain is, they get to the top of the mountain, and then where do you go from there?
Yeah.
Well, where you go from there, you can either do one of two things. You give everything to holding on to that base you've built on the mountaintop, you know, at the top of the pyramid, at the top of the peak, and defend it, which is why in Capricorn we also build walls. So you build up walls and systems and structures to defend what you've built and created. But there are other energies beyond Capricorn that go, wait a minute, this creation has now become so concretized and so stuck and so rigid and so controlled and controlling. What happened to freedom? What happened to autonomy? You know, what happened to human rights? What's happened to our capacity to make our own choices? Where did it go?
So Uranus kicks in.
Exactly. So that then brings us to the next two signs, which are Aquarius and Pisces. And that's why, you know, I might do this again. It's just sort of reminded me just to even do a whole day workshop on the zodiac. The zodiac is just the most incredible. It's a circle, it's complete, you know, and it just encompasses everything. And it's such an amazing system. There's the word system again. But it's such a wonderful, it gives us a lot of insight into Capricorn, because, you know, the focus, as we know, is all on Capricorn this year. I mean, Pluto's been here since 2008. That's when the, you know, economic crash hit. And then the last 2 years, Saturn's been here, and all this year, Jupiter's been here as well. So we're really staring in the face of the expression of everything that's been building to this point. It hasn't just popped up out of nowhere. You know, it's not just, how did that happen? If we have a look, and go and follow the trail back, you can see all the steps. It's all there. And then the square to Aries is important, because, you know, from now till the end of the year, as we've talked about before, Mars is really pushing up against these Capricorn planets. You think, well, how could Mars possibly do anything against the power and the might, you know, of Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto in Capricorn? Mars is more the individual urge literally to individuate, you know, and to fight for your right to individuate. And so it's a very interesting situation, and it's actually going to continue in the next coming month to, you know, manifest as a series of ongoing crises, crisis after crisis after crisis after crisis. So we're not out of the woods yet at all.
No.
But what we're seeing is that more and more people individually and coming together are really pushing back against this might of the solid, entrenched position represented by, you know, Capricorn. And this is not to diss Capricorn at all. I have great respect for this sign. Like, every sign has its amazing, beautiful, wonderful qualities and purpose, and every sign also has its shadow. And this is the shadow we're talking about of Capricorn. And what we are all being challenged to face within us and have a look within us is, where is my integrity in this? Because really Capricorn's about integrity and honesty, and like really good Capricorn people value highly integrity and honesty. It's a really high value, but the abuse of that energy of Capricorn is what we're seeing in the world. You know, the absolute misuse of political, economic, social, religious power, and all of the systems that all have big stone buildings, you know?
Yes.
They're housed in these big stone buildings that have been there a long time. That they kind of represent that. And,
so I think
and Mars is like the little individual trying to throw a spear at that, but it's, you know, it's not without its own power.
And I think the people are chipping away at the establishment in so many ways at the moment.
Yes.
And I wouldn't be surprised if the governments of countries around the world were surprised themselves at how the people have been organised themselves in various marches and the power of that, and the power, using the power of social media for good,
Yeah.
in a way that we can communicate all around the planet very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think I'm sure there's some people in governments going, "Wow, I didn't know this was going to happen." They're quite surprised by it. They're trying to control it really hard. And I think in a way that's why we're seeing some of this police brutality.
That's right, because there's been massive and extreme censorship going on in social media, because this structure is desperately trying to maintain its control.
Yeah.
But something's changed, and there are so many levels of this going on. We could go on for hours about this. There's so much happening. But that square, like the other thing about Aries, and we have Chiron in Aries now for some years. We have Mars here through the end of the year. And of course, Eris has been here since the 1920s. She's slowly moving through here. But so Aries is like a natural instinctive urge within us all that has a kind of innocence and purity about it in many ways. Of course, its shadow side is just aggression and thuggery, yes, but it's in its pure essence, it's that kind of innocent, almost childlike urge to go, oh, wow, let's do this. And it's fire, and it's the first impulse of life to act, to do, to move, to explore, to try new things, to, go into new territory and new experiences. And when that's being thwarted and stopped by these big energies from, Saturn and Capricorn, what's going to happen over here in Aries? You get pissed off. So in Aries, and Mars, ruler of Aries, it triggers anger and pushback and fight. You can't stop me doing what I want to do. You can't tell me what to do.
It's like, you're not the boss of me.
Exactly.
That little kids say.
I will never forget when my little daughter said that to me, although you're not the boss of me. And it stopped me in my tracks. I thought, in the bigger picture, she's actually right. I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, then the comeback is, well, I'm the adult and I'm, blah, 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 blah. But really, that's right.
Yes.
But in the little child, their Mars is getting really activated around the age of 2.
Yes.
And it's that, I'm not going to do what you tell me. You can't tell me what to do.
Yes.
So it's a good thing, we need to find that courage and fire and fight in us. Sometimes we have to stand and fight, whatever that means. And that doesn't always look like, picking up a weapon. That's, that people do that in very different ways. But it's about defending your individuality. And so these squares from Aries to Capricorn are really important this year, and such a big, big part of what's unfolding.
It's also, I'm wondering how much that plays out in certain respects to some situations where compromise has to come into play, because everyone can't win everything. That's not going to happen in this situation. It's, in fact, very few are winning, but it's not about winning and losing. It's about society surviving, isn't it, really, and getting through the pandemic. And I was just having a conversation this morning about, as a Prime Minister, it must be very difficult to hold your country together, to make sure it survives what's been going on economically, so that there is a country for us to survive into, So that's one thing. Then you've got these other issues on the sidelines which need to be dealt with, like, we're seeing, less than fruitful police behaviour. We're seeing abuse of power. We're seeing health information's being covered up. Media is distorting things. All those things need to be dealt with. But the priority right now is to get the country through this economically, and maintain a place on the planet so that we can continue to trade and continue to take that cohesion even further, to be part of that cohesive global place. So there's got to be a lot of compromise going on in the background, I think.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think we're in such new territory, and there are many, and I'm inclined along these lines, who speak in terms of like everything that's taken place for some thousands of years and brought us to this point. One way of looking at that is to say that the whole thing is fundamentally corrupt, you know, and has been corrupted, and that perhaps in the years to come, many of these systems that have been put in place are being and are going to be literally broken down and dismantled, because humanity, as we move into the Aquarian age, which is no small thing, is, if we survive this collectively, you know, which I'm sure we will, we need to find a completely new and different way to live on this planet, like completely different. And I'm not sure that a whole lot of the old systems will actually remain even, you know. So I think it's so intense because I think we're really looking at a massive death and rebirth, and we're not in the rebirth yet.
Yes.
You know, we're looking at something that is dying. It's like the old man is dying.
Yes.
And he's desperately trying to cling to his last breaths. It's, you know, like as a metaphor. And I think that's very apt when we look at Saturn in Capricorn. You know, we can consider that placement with Pluto. It's like, there's a wonderful astrologer who's no longer with us in Sydney, who had a big impact on me way back in the beginning of my astrological journey, said the Saturn-Pluto conjunction is like trying to put a lid on top of a volcano, you know, or plug a volcano with concrete. It's just not going to hold. You know, sooner or later it's going to blow. It's it's a powerful image, but this is it does not get any more powerful than Pluto conjunct Saturn in Capricorn. And now with the squares to Mars square Saturn, Mars square Pluto, it's so strong. And this is all the prelude, as we know, to planets about to shift into Aquarius, representing a new age. So it's not that overnight we'll be in a new age. No. It's a transition. But I actually do feel that many of the structures and the systems that we know will change shape considerably. We don't know what that's going to look like. I think human consciousness is going to go through a huge leap, and in a new state of consciousness, humanity won't need to or be able to maintain all of the systems that were built in an older state of consciousness. You know, so it's very it's kind of exciting, interesting, very challenging, highly traumatizing for many. You know, many people are feeling very traumatized now. Yeah. And some are in much more difficult situations than others. You know, like I've been thinking about this too. You know, why do any of us find ourselves where we are, like located in what city, in what state, in what country? You know, because this is all playing out in different ways around the world. It seems similar, but different kind of scenarios. So, you know, why does any soul find themselves in any particular situation right now? And I just think it's to do with, that's just where you're required to be for your soul's evolution. You know, if we take that view, that's a great teaching of Saturn, you know, to just stand in where you are. This is where I am. These are my circumstances, whether I like it or not right now. This is my reality right here, right now. How do I meet this square on, be in it, feel and experience everything that it's bringing up in me? That's the way through this, I feel. Like it's an opportunity for every soul to really meet what has been unmet. Yes. Up to this point. You know, we're all facing a lot of things in our own shadows, you know, like You know, like what have I kind of put aside for all these years? What have I not dealt with? What have I not wanted to look at? And it's coming up and it's in my face right now.
Well, you know, I listened to Carolyn Miss. Is it Carolyn Miss or Carolyn Mace? I'm never sure.
I say Miss.
Miss, yes. I listened to her a very short thing she did recently, and she was saying that you know, right now people are feeling like they're living in Never Never Land, because we're living through a situation where this has never happened and that's never happened. I've never seen that, and never, never, never. And you know, generally we're blown away and on surreal overload, basically.
Yes.
Well, and she also said something interesting, which made me think of Pluto, which is the Lord of Karma too, isn't it?
Saturn is the Lord of Karma.
Oh, Saturn, sorry, yes. Where she said that our civilization is living through karma right now. We're living through karma. And it made me think about, you know, we always think of karma as really important, big issues, which they are, but also it's the little things too. The little things when we didn't stop and help people when we could see they needed help because we were too busy, we're too tired, we're too occupied with materialism, we're too whatever, you know. So we put ourselves first when we could have stopped and helped someone and help them very simply. And I've been hearing stories of people who going through supermarkets who have to put things back because they didn't have enough money to buy it. And the person behind them will buy it for them, pay for the groceries that they really wanted, and someone who could afford it. And I'm thinking that's such a gift of grace from that person. But, you know, we've all done that. We've all been too busy, too tired, too preoccupied with our own things, not to stop and help people. So we're all, in a way, and I'm not you know, beating ourselves on the back or anything like this, but I'm saying, you know, there are times in our life when we know we could make better choices, where we let things slip, where we haven't stood up for something and said what we needed to say, all those sorts of things.
Right.
So and that creates karma in a way, if you believe in karma. But you need a point that needs rebalancing.
That's exactly right. Like all that unmet, unrealized, all those issues and experiences in us, and those things that we, you know, could do better or could have done better, or been more honorable or more loving or more kind. That's exactly right. And I think, you know, I was having a conversation around this with a client just the other day, who's really facing some big things at this time. And like, I think it's really helpful if we consider that we are in a process of death and dying in many ways. And, you know, it's that thing of if we all stop and imagine ourselves on our deathbed, because in a way we collectively are on one level, and look back at our life like, what didn't I do that I really wished I'd done? And that thing about never, I read that as well. It was a beautiful piece that she wrote. And the word surreal, it is surreal. It is surreal what's going on. Like what's going on in Victoria is just like, what? It's extraordinary, but in many places. And never land, we find ourselves doing things we never ever thought we'd be doing, or we're doing things we never ever thought we could do, you know. And I think we're all discovering certain things like, wow, I never thought I'd be doing this. I never thought I'd be running you know, webinars online. I wasn't interested in doing that. What I'm doing, you know, that's one example. Like, we're in this never ever place. Like, I never thought I'd be doing that. I never thought I'd be speaking up about this. I never thought I'd be having conversations with this person. You know, there's so many. We're in such a new place, aren't we? We're facing the past. We're having to face the past and the old, but it's bringing us to something very new. And I think that's a great metaphor, transition, that, you know, for this transition time. And birth is never easy, and it's, you know, it's often potentially dangerous too.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So are there anything else? Are there other things that we need to look
Well, let's break down some of the bits here.
Yes.
So yes, so the new moon. There's a few things I wanted to look at. Okay, on the 22nd of September, the sun comes out of Virgo and goes into Libra. Now, the significance of that, there's a couple of things. One is that every year when the sun is at 0 degrees of Libra, that is the equinox. For us in the Antipodes, it's the spring equinox, and in the Northern Hemisphere, it's the autumn equinox. When the sun in its north and south movement, over the planet is sitting directly over the equator, and day and night are in equal length. Everything is in this place of equilibrium, which is what Libra is all about. And then as the sun, Mercury is already in Libra. As the sun makes its way through Libra, it will be making squares to the planets in Capricorn and an opposition to the Mars, as Mercury is already. So we get this, then the cardinal sign of Libra starts to come into play with this big, Capricorn Mars. By the way, I just want to mention while I'm on that, Mars is in his own sign, extra powerful. Saturn is in his own sign, extra powerful. The ancients always traditionally spoke of those two planets, Saturn and Mars, as the malefics, meaning that they have a tendency to cause us a lot of trouble. They can be problematical. They're not easy. And here they are, both in their own signs, extra strong in this square. So, but back to Libra now, the Libran energy is coming in. Mercury's already there. The sun is coming through. And, in 4 weeks, we'll have the new moon in Libra. That new moon will connect into this story. So the Libran part of that story, and if we look around in ourselves, in our own personal world and in the world around us at large, Libra is about what you were saying. It's about, compromise, justice, fairness. It's also to do with the law very much. I think we're going to see some interesting developments legally going on. We're going to see legal challenges, really ramping up. There's already signs of that. We're going to see that really stepping up. Challenges to fundamental legal issues will be going on. And, themes around justice and fairness. And Libra is also a sign of peace and equanimity, calling on us, can we find ways to really bring a bit more balance? Because things are quite extreme. There are extreme polarities going on. And Libra's endeavour is like John Lennon, the Libran, give peace a chance. All you need is love. Imagine all those amazing songs about peace and harmony and love. Truly an expression of Libra. Hopefully this Libran energy, as the sun comes through, will help to calm some of the waters a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that's an opportunity for us all to try and find a bit of equanimity and balance in whatever way we need to. So I wanted to just bring that in. But the equinox, these 4 cardinal points of the year when the sun is at 0 degrees of the 4 cardinal signs, are real power points. And, of the solstices and the equinoxes, and they are really important moments. And they're like turning points, it's like the wheel turns. As the sun is either at her place right on the equator, or her furthest north declination or furthest south declination, and stops and turns. So they are really important moments. I've noticed there's quite a bit happening from the equinox and for that week following it. And there's just a kind of a little list here I'll quickly run through. I don't need to go into it in great detail, but sun goes into Libra. Mars conjuncts the black moon. Mercury in Libra squares Saturn in Capricorn. Mercury is opposite Mars. This is all over a few days. Mercury is opposite the black moon, which is conjunct Mars. And then the moon goes into Mercury goes into Scorpio. So there's a few days around the equinox when there's quite a bit happening. That could be a very sort of interesting, quite strong couple of days. Now, the other thing that's super cool, I want to say, I'm going to use that word cool to talk about. You know, women of my age can use the word cool.
I think so.
I'm from that era.
You can use groovy too if you want to.
Groovy, that's exactly right. That's my language. A few days ago, the planet Jupiter, one of the big players in Capricorn, turned direct. Yay! This is good news because these guys in Capricorn have been in retrograde motion for some months now. And that always makes it a bit more difficult and challenging. And when they turn and go direct, there's a feeling of, okay, now something's moving. Now something's beginning to move forward. Having gone back over this old territory and kind of done a bit of deeper research and investigation, or things just get more challenging, now they're going to start, and I'm already seeing it, that things are starting to move, things are starting to free up a little bit, you know. Really nice piece of news is that on the 29th of September, Saturn stations and turns direct. Now, it won't be an immediate thing because, you know, he moves very slowly around those days, and that even when he turns, he's going to take a little while to get up a bit of speed and really get going. But it is significant. That is going to start to feel easier for everybody. We'll just feel it, you know, the general vibe is going to feel like it's loosening up a bit. And things will happen too. We'll see it, you know, manifested in events in the world. Things will start to change. And then on the 4th of October, I'm bringing this in because these three are working together this year. Like they're all in cahoots. They've joined forces for the year. Pluto turns direct on the 4th of October. So I can feel it, you know, if I just stop and feel that in my body, like my belly just went, oh, like, oh, God, that feels better. You know, like, that sense of like this grip, this incredible grip that's been holding. And we have been in a holding pattern. I've been using that phrase because I've been experiencing that myself. Feels like we've been in a holding pattern for some time.
Yes, very much.
Yeah, and I think with these planets turning retrograde, now Mars is going to continue making squares to them to the end of the year, but they will no longer be retrograde. Mars is retrograde, but they won't be retrograde as well. So that's going to start to really shift things, and it will feel, when a planet turns direct, it feels like, oh, now we can begin to move forward. We've done the work, whatever that was that needed to happen back here, and now we can begin to move forward. So I just really wanted to share that because it's actually good news.
Yeah, so when it goes direct, that's when, because it's been in retrograde, for those people who haven't been tuning in before, it appears to us little earthlings on planet Earth that the planet goes backwards, but when it goes direct, we then see it moving forwards. That's right.
That's exactly right. And they don't actually do that in the sky, just from where we are on Earth in the solar system. And that happens every single year. These three planets do this every year for 4 to 5 months. So it happens every year. It's just that this particular year, when they're working as a team at this very pivotal time, like it's really significant. And I just think it's really helpful to know that they're turning direct, you know, like, you know, like party time. Well, not really party time yet, but, you know,
When we see Saturn going direct, which is, you know, Saturn is restricting.
That's right.
That's when we might see some of the restrictions changing.
That's right, because Saturn's also the great teacher, as is Jupiter, and they are wisdom teachers actually, and their work is to, you know, through reality and experience and knowledge, help us to grow and evolve and become mature and wise and face reality, you know, and deal with it and make choices based on that instead of fantasy, you know, very much about that. So I think, yeah, it's like, you know, is our footing firm and strong? And I think that's an interesting idea that just came to me, that for each of us as individuals, do we feel strong and clear about who we are and where we are in life, in ourselves, in the world? You know, do we have a strong sense of our own identity and who we are? And do we feel authentic, you know, in who we are? And are we feeling honorable? Do we have respect for who we are? You know, these are, I think, important themes for us all individually, and then we bring that into the collective field. So, you know, as you were saying something about this before, I think so much of what's happening is literally a manifestation of humanity's collective shadow. We have all, individually and collectively, for lifetimes and generations, literally contributed to this and manifested this. That might seem weird and too far out and too extreme for some, but on that deep level, this is all actually our doing.
Yeah, I think the big decisions that we're unhappy with, they start with little decisions by the individual.
They do.
And that's where that's where I see that things have gone wrong. And while we might see, bad use of power, well, and we might say, well, we can't do anything about that. And I've said that myself, because there are some things now that you cannot make a difference with. You've got to rely on I've said this to a few of my friends who've been quite upset during this whole restriction and all this cover up and whatever, about feeling very frustrated and angry about it. And I said, well, you do your bit at your level, and we have to rely on other people at other levels who are like us.
Exactly.
To do their bit, right?
Exactly.
But honestly, if you go back to the beginning, somewhere along the line, we've made choices that have given other people power.
That's exactly it. We have given away power, and we have not paid attention to all the signs and all the steps that have been taken by those in power. We've not paid attention, and we've not pushed back, and we've not jumped up. And some have, but collectively the people know.
Yeah.
And we have let this happen.
Yeah.
And that's one of the harsh realities that Saturn brings us face to face with. You know, he's a tough master, and he says, "Got to face this. This is how it is."
Yeah. Yeah.
It is our individual and collective doing, and it's now unfolding, and it's literally up to us to sort this out.
Yes.
Because that's the only way that we can shift into another level of consciousness so that we can live on this planet in a very, very different way. We can't bypass that step, you know, and that's a really important thing, and that's where we are. It's staring us in the face, you know.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking,
and we all have work to do.
Yes, I was just thinking that while I was saying that before, that people are probably saying, "Oh, but I can't do this and I can't do that." And I never let these people, you know, have that power. But actually, I think for a lot of people, there have been times in their life where they have not been interested in politics because it's a dirty game, and they wanted people who were dirty to play that game. And that's where we've let it slip out of our power. That's where we've given our power away.
That's right.
So, and the other thing I wanted to say was, you know, during these restrictions, you were talking about, you know, getting to know ourselves, who we are, our identity. I knew that before the restrictions, but through the restrictions, I lost some of that because some of the markers disappeared for me that gave me identity in some ways. And at first I was glad because, you know, I thought, oh, well, this is great. I don't have to do this and I don't have to do that. I don't have to be responsible for this, etc. But after a while, I started missing the things that were missing in my life, right?
Yeah.
And but it gave me the opportunity to be still, not just tread water, to be absolutely still. And when you're still, it's like reading, and we all have these plateau phases in our life that we reach and where nothing seems to happen for a long time. And then, but while we're still and in that plateau phase, we are what I call potentiating. We are potentiating ourselves in ways that are happening in our unconscious. So that when we come out of it, we find other aspects of ourselves that we didn't, that would, until we had that experience, were unknowable to us.
Yes, yes, exactly. And what came to mind as you were speaking, that I got this image. It's like the 12th house of the womb, where a period of gestation. Because what was the word you used?
Potentiation.
Potentiation, gestation. Like there's a gestation going on, isn't it? And that can only happen when we're still and quiet.
Well, yeah, gestation is where we're coming together to be formed.
Right.
And it's very similar to potentiation. It's where we already have stuff,
Right.
but we haven't brought it down and crystallized it yet.
Right.
So it is similar, but slightly
Right.
different. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Mm.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Everyone's in their own process here. Everybody's journey is going to be really unique. We're all in the kind of same, well, even our situation isn't the same according to where we live and so on, and our work and family and everything. But yeah, we're all navigating through this. And around that thing you brought up before, sorry, I've just got a delivery out there. It's fine. He'll leave it there. I can't do anything about it as just an individual. We can. There are so many things we can do, and that's the inner work. Come back here, focus on more and more on the positives of our life. I mean, I know these things sound trite, but they're very real and they're very powerful. You know, what are we grateful for? Where's the joy? Am I having any joy? All these things lift our spirits, lift our energy. If we're just constantly mired in worry and anxiety and fear and terror, that's not helping the collective field. You know, each one of us is a part of the collective unified field. Like, that is real.
Yes.
And individually, we all contribute to that. And so I think the question is, what are we contributing? And what do we want to be contributing? Just right here in my life. I was going to say little life, and then I was like, no, it's not little. None of our lives are little, and we're not, you know. It's in my life, what am I contributing to the collective field, and what do I want to be contributing to that? And I think in that way, each of us can do so much, and I think it's so powerful and so important. And we can come back to our sun sign. You know, the sun does represent fundamentally who we are in this incarnation anyway, in this embodiment. And what does that say about you and your purpose and who you are and what you're to bring? And you know, like, really focus on the really good, positive, pure qualities of that sign, you know, and bring that through in whatever way we do, you know. I think we can all do, but I understand why we sometimes feel God against that huge machine and that corporate machine, because it's like a machine. What can one person do? But, you know, I just cancelled my subscription to something online yesterday. Felt so good. One person. But I realise there's actually many people doing the same thing right now. I won't mention who it is.
I think I know what it is.
You probably do. And I just, and I did a little bit of research first. I thought, okay, I'm hearing this and this. I don't like what I'm hearing. I just went in and kind of dug around a bit, you know, did a few searches to find out. You can't find everything out because so much of it's secret, shrouded in secrecy. But I thought, no, I'm done.
Yeah.
Cancel it.
All that adds up.
All those things add up. That's right.
Yeah. And I think too, you know, we're so caught up at the moment in survival mode, I think, that we forget that we are still surrounded by the unseen world. And you touched on it in your own way, what I would call telepathic contagion.
Wow.
And we've been, you know, I've done it too. I've had my whinge and I've stamped my feet and I've sent my emails and I've protested about this and that and the other and been very vocal at times on in social media. But I feel it's actually, excuse me, a time to change tack for people. I feel it's time. I mean, you know, we've seen we've seen protests and police responding. Not all of them. I'm glad we've got a police force. Don't get me wrong, because there are some really good people in there.
Yeah.
But there are a few who aren't, and we've seen that aggression come out. But imagine, you know, 1 million people standing in the street doing nothing.
Exactly.
Just as a protest.
Exactly.
No placards, no this, no that, just nothing.
Exactly.
Now, what can you do with 1 million people who are standing in the street?
Nothing. That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So I think, you know, we've done the stamp our feet and spit the dummy thing. And maybe it's time to try something new, something out of the box, something Aquarian for a change, to start to bring in that new way of doing things and achieving what we really like to see in our society.
That's right. And one of the Aquarian things too is about the, you know, open sharing of information too, you know, and that spreads like wildfire. So there are many things about that. And, you know, if we're still having these delightful, wonderful conversations at the end of the year, we'll be certainly talking about the Aquarian story as those planets finally come out of Capricorn.
Yes, can't wait for that.
I
think we're
know.
already seeing hints of that with some new technologies coming out, but we'll save that later in the year.
Yes. So yeah, there is life on the other side of this. We don't know what it will look like yet, but and we're still got a way to go, but yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there anything else that you wanted to add, or?
No, I think I just really wanted to make sure that I brought in that information. These planets are turning direct. I think that's just a really helpful thing for us all to be aware of. And as I said, it doesn't mean they're going to solve all our problems immediately. Absolutely not. But there is definitely a change and a loosening up of this grip that, you know, we've been experiencing, and we're going to see it. We're going to see evidence. You know, this Capricorn, it's actual tangible evidence. You know, real things starting to change and happen.
Yeah. Well, that's good news. Very good news. Well, thank you so much again for a lovely conversation and enlightening people about the astrological flow as we roll on through the pandemic, because I think that's really helpful for people to, you know, if we know things are happening and sometimes we don't know why, but if we can understand why, it makes it a little easier, and because then we can see there's a light at the end of the tunnel too, can't we?
That's right. It gives some perspective, and it helps us to sort of, for me, I always find it helps me to stand back a bit and step away from it, and just and have a look from a bit more of an eagle perspective, you know, and see more.
Yes.
And I think that's really helps. One of the things I'm so grateful to astrology for. It just gives me a higher, more sort of separate perspective, you know, and I can expand right out to a really, really big picture.
Yeah.
With that framework.
I do that with the ETs. I look at planet Earth from the extraterrestrial perspective.
Brilliant. Yes.
Which is also Aquarian too.
Very.
Yes. But anyway, that's for another time. So thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure.
Once again. And we will catch up in another couple of weeks as we talk about the more of what we've been talking about and how we've moved on.
Okay.
Thanks, Pamela. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.